Okay, hi. I am going to show you how I do the icons and name changes. It's pretty simple, but you're going to need a few things to get started, a few programs. You're going to need Blender 4.0. You're going to need the audio modding tool, which you can find in the Helldivers modding Discord in resources. Uh, the audio modding guide, it'll explain what programs you need. First, you're going to need WWise, and you're going to need the audio modding tool, which is right there, that little button. Additionally, you are going to need the SDK and SDK releases. You're going to need that to plug into Blender. So inside of Blender, let me restart this because I recorded this whole thing and didn't realize the audio was not turned on. So that was fun. Anyway, so inside of Blender, you're going to click on the little tab here that says modding. It's going to bring up the SDK. And I have listed in my optional downloads for this mod the PNGs. Inside of that, you don't even if you don't need the PNGs, it has the three main archives for the icons so that you can easily find what you're looking for. Yeah, so for example, let's go, yeah, this is the one we need. Okay, so D88. Oh, right, sorry. Okay, so inside of the SDK, you're going to click this little magnifying glass, and you're going to paste in whatever archive you're trying to work with. Hit OK, and it's going to load that. Now, normally, if you hit write new patch, it's going to give you a patch for the base archive, which is 9BA, yada yada yada. For these specific ones, you don't necessarily need to do 9BA patches. So to turn that off, it's this little thing right here. You uncheck patch base archive only, and that'll let you produce a patch for the archive you're trying to work with. So once you've loaded up the archive, these are going to be all the image files that you have to work with in that archive. You're going to select them, and what I do inside of my folder for this, I just made a blank folder to paste them into, because if you paste directly into, like if you already had edits in here, right, and you go to export them, it's going to just export over top of your edits, and you don't want to do that if you've already done edits. So to export, select them, right click, go to export 6PNG, whatever it says, but export PNGs and put them in your folder there. So that's going to bring you the images that you have in there. Like for example, this is the HUD icons. So yeah, you have a bunch of different icons in here. Let's load up, for example, this one. So you're also gonna need like Photoshop or GIMP to edit these, or Paint.net, something to edit the actual image itself. So I use Photoshop. Yeah, this will give you this. So to set up, what I do, you don't have to do this, but this is what I do. I make a copy of the image that I'm working with, hide that for now, and I layer lock the position. Because last thing you want is you're putting a bunch of images in here, you're moving them around, and you didn't realize that you moved this image over 3 pixels and everything is wrong in game. So layer lock that, and the last thing for setup is make a new layer, drag it to the bottom, and whoops, we are just going to paint this black so that when we delete something, it'll still have a black background. Like if I delete this sword now, on this layer, make sure you're selected there, delete the sword, black background. Obviously I'm not going to use this, but so if you look, it has this blue outline, and in my original tutorial on how to do the blue outline, it was a little complicated and time consuming, relatively speaking, but I found a way easier way to do it now. So select your image, rasterize the layer, and then this is Photoshop specific. I don't know about any other programs, but With your image selected, double click the layer and go to outer layer glow, and that'll give you this blue outline. Size it up, make it, it doesn't have to be perfect. Mine are all over the place with their sizes, just as long as it has a blue outline. So it gives you the blue outline, and it's also going to do this to get rid of this. So right now, if you didn't do what I'll show you later, it's going to do that. When you size it down, it keeps the blue outline the same size. You don't want that. So what you do is right-click the layer and rasterize layer style. And now it'll lock that, and it won't do that anymore. So then you take this, say I wanted to put this, for some reason, over these bullets, right? Instead of bullets, I want a hammer. So you're going to size it up. Weapons specifically, they have a small border above and below that you can go outside of before it'll cut off your image. Like you do have a little bit of play. Not much, but there is a little bit of play if your icon is a little bit taller or longer. But anyway, so put it over your image and then select the base layer, delete that, boom, good to go. One's done. Now do all 100 and something other ones. Have fun. Okay, so you're done with that. You did all your images, right? You're going to save this as a PNG. After you save that as a PNG, you're going to go back into Blender and you're going to start pulling in your images. So like all of these are done. So make sure you have a new patch in. If you don't have a new patch in, it's not going to let you bring the images in. So 17.9, that's the one that we were just working with. So you're going to import. Don't click export. I've done that so many times and overwritten my edits. It's annoying. Make sure you're on import. And then we're in the correct archive. Click on the image you want to import, import, and now that's in your patch. Fill up whatever other ones that you edited and click write patch. Right? So that is going to put that in your data folder, your Steam apps, common, Helldivers 2 data. And right here's the patch. So what I do is I made a specific patch folder, and I just save everything in here so that it's easier to zip together. So you save everything in there, your manifest is in here. I'm not going to make a tutorial on how to do manifests. It's, just, if you can use mine if you want, just make sure you change the GUID. Otherwise it's going to mess up in your mod manager. So to get a new GUID, just go on Google, type in GUID generator, and copy in a new number and put it in there. Make your name. If you have an icon, put your icon in there. Yeah, and then just add everything together, zip it in a folder, and load it into your mod manager. That's how you do the icons. A couple things to note that are kind of specific to certain archives, images, is see how these three look like they're white? They're not. They're actually clear backgrounds. So 699. So if I load this up here, you can see when it loads in, it's got a clear background. It needs to stay a clear background when you save it. But I make a black layer just to work with so I can actually see what I'm working with. Just make sure you hide that layer when you save the PNG, or it's going to mess up all of these images when you go into the game with it. So just make sure you uncheck that layer. Okay, another tip I have here, and this is quite specific to certain types of images. So if you see this image right here, so this was the illuminate icon for this specific thing. You can't just paste a black picture of, like, say you want to change the faction symbol, right? You can't just put a black image over there and expect it to work. It's not going to work. It's still clear behind there. So the easiest way that I found to do this, to change this, is, so let's say this was the illuminate symbol there. What we're going to do is on the main layer, we're going to select around that symbol and paint it white. Okay? And then we're going to bring in our new faction symbol, which is the covenant symbol. We're going to put it into position probably be easier if I made this image black, but whatever. And then do the quick selection tool. Select your image, right? So now you got the dancing ants around your image, and click on your base layer and hit delete, and then hide your logo. So now it is deleted and it is clear. Again, hyper specific, but hopefully that's helpful. Okay, moving on to these. So these are the little icons next to your name for like your titles. Let me just hide my layers here and I can show this to you. Okay, so these are the base ones. If you look at it, right, you see the height for this one, right, is relatively 152 pixels. But these are 130 pixels. The ones that are smaller, you would think in-game, if you made one that was 152 pixels and put it over this one, it should still work since they're filling up the same amount of space on your little player card in-game. It does not work. They need to be pretty much the exact same height as these, or it will cut off your image that you're putting over it. So you got to make sure that they are pretty much exactly the same height and width. You can make them smaller if you want to. It's going to be harder to see in-game, but they cannot go above these by very much. So I believe that is everything I can teach regarding icons. So we're going to move on to how to do the name change edits. Okay. So load up the Helldivers 2 audio modder. And inside of here, you're going to type in 9BA and click on that and hit enter. And it should load up the base game archive, which has all of the different text in game. So to change something, you can use the little search bar here. Say I wanted to change something like the tenderizer, right? I'm going to search tenderizer, if I can spell. Hit enter and search it. And to change it, say we change this to battle rifle. You don't hit enter. After you type your text in, don't hit enter. Hit apply at the bottom. Otherwise, it's not going to save your edit. And you'll know your edit is changed because it'll now change the entry to white. So you know that's changed. One thing to note, though, for a lot of things in game, it's not just the single capitalized letter in the name. This search bar is completely case sensitive, by the way. So you see it's 1 of 1 right now, but there's also a secondary entry for the fully capitalized name. So you need to make sure you change that as well. That goes for a lot of, like, the weapons, attachments, all that kind of stuff, helmet names. It all has 2 entries in there for their title. So make sure you change that. Another thing to note here, if I search up something like Eagle, for example, there's 103 entries in here for Eagle, right? But you don't have to change all of those. Like I changed it to Longsword. There is, see, when you get to these types of entries that have the brackets, these are all of the subtitle text. So you don't necessarily, I mean, you can change them, obviously, but you don't need to change all of those if you don't want to. I mean, if you're doing something like an audio mod for like the Democracy Officer and you want to change his subtitle to whatever you're changing the words to, you can. It's probably a pain in the ass. I'm not going to do that personally. That seems like it would take way too much time, but it is possible to do. Yeah, so say you changed all your names, then you're going to go up to File, Write Patch. This doesn't go straight into your data folder like Blender does. This you have to pick where you're going to save it to. So find wherever you want to save it to, save it, and that's about it for that one. Uh, yeah, I don't think there's anything else. If you have any questions, you can leave me a comment and I'll try to get to it. But if this was helpful, be sure to give me a like. Thanks.